In this movie, I will discuss basic error types that will inevitably be encountered while you're progressing through the programming process. Errors are classified in three categories: syntax errors, logic errors, and runtime errors. Syntax errors are simply when you make a mistake in a violation in a rule of the language. For example, you may have misspelled a word or use incorrect punctuation. The more you work with the language, the more easily these will be discovered. Syntax errors must be corrected in order for you to continue the programming process. Logic errors are more difficult to spot. That is because output is being produced, but the results are not correct. It is up to you as the programmer to carefully check the output of your program to make sure that it is producing the correct and desired results. Runtime errors are errors that only occur while the project is being executed. An example of this type of error may be when you're trying to access a file and the wrong file name is provided, or perhaps the file is not available. That is considered a runtime error. I will now open a program already created in the Visual Basic environment. In this sample program, I have a program already designed and coded. The purpose of this program is to demonstrate some simple error types. The objective of this program, when executed, is to accept two numbers and then to add those two numbers together. So in my demonstration, I'll enter two numbers, for example the numbers 3 and 6, and click the Calculate button. As you can see, the result is incorrect in that it did not add the two numbers together, 3 and 6. Instead, it apparently multiplied these two numbers. So we'll need to investigate and see what's happening in the code. So I'll stop the program and change the view to the code window. I'll close some of the other windows so we can get a better look at the code. As you can see, the Calculate button has one line of code which is simply placing into the label called Answer Label the result of one number and two numbers being multiplied. The asterisk is the multiplication symbol in Visual Basic. This is an example of a logic error. That is because logically the program is not doing what was intended. As you can see by the comment, it was supposed to calculate and display the sum of the two numbers entered, not the product. In other words, it should have added the two numbers rather than multiply the two numbers. If this is discovered, this can be very easily fixed by simply changing the asterisk to a plus symbol. And now we can run the program once again and we can test our program. So again, I'll enter the numbers 3 and 6 and click Calculate, and as you now see, the answer is indeed correct, which is 9. You want to take care in that you choose appropriate test data. For example, if I choose the number 2 in both entries and click Calculate, you'll notice I get the number 4. But that's not really appropriate test data, because 2 plus 2 is 4, and obviously 2 times 2 is 4 also. So you want to test your program thoroughly and use appropriate test data. Now we'll stop our program and return to the code window, and let's introduce some syntax errors. For example, if I remove the number 1 from the text box called number 1, you notice immediately I get a blue squiggly line, and when I hold the mouse over that blue line, I get a tooltip that tells me the number text box is not declared. The assumption here is that the text box on the form, that is this text box, is actually the text box called number 1 text box, and this text box is number 2 text box. So back in my code, when I incorrectly reference number 1 text box simply as number text box, as you can see, I'm getting an error message. If I ignore this error message and try to run the program, I receive the message that says there were build errors. Would you like to continue and run the last successful build? Be careful here. If I answer yes, then it's going to run the last successful executable version of this program, which was the previous program which I ran before. And that would not aid me in determining what the problem is here. So I want to answer no to this question, and as you can see, I get an error list, and it tells me that the number text box is not declared. It also provides a line and a column number where the error is occurring. So as you can see, syntax errors are much easier to find simply because the compiler is providing you feedback. So I'll correct this error. As you can see, immediately that error goes away. Likewise, if I inadvertently delete or leave out the period between answer label and text, you can see that creates another problem. In this case, it creates an error for the entire line. If, for example, I choose a comma rather than the period, again, I get an error message. As you can see in the error list, this is creating several errors. In fact, there's only one problem here, that is the incorrect use of the punctuation. There needs to be a dot or a period between the object name of answer label and the property, in this case, text. So as you're working with code in Visual Basic, you want to pay attention to the error messages that will inevitably occur as you're working with this. Notice that this program now has an error at the end of the statement. It says end of statement expected. That's because there's an extra right parentheses at the end of the line. And again, all those errors need to be corrected in order for this program to execute properly. It's important to experiment with even a simple program like this one and purposely introduce errors so you can see the type of error messages that you will receive, and it's just a matter of some trial and error and some experience to come to understand what the error messages truly mean and how to correct them.